Hello, everyone. I'm sure, we cannot see each other, but I'm sure we'll connect some hearts today. So eagerly waiting for the clock to turn the next 60 minutes.
And we hope that we will have a lot of chatting also going on.
Yes, I hope so.
Another minute and we'll get started. So it's 6 o'clock and we love to get started on time. So today we're talking about unlocking our creative universe. So first of all, we're just going to understand even what that phrase means. We've got Sinjini Sengupta with her. She's an award-winning author, a speaker, a columnist. And in this session, we're going to explore ourselves and our worlds to uncover our true stories, to align our creative joy with our life's path. A little bit about Sinjini. She's the founder of Lighthouse, where she drives her mission to bring hearts to work. So I know that's a tough task, bringing your heart to work. After 12 long years at a rigorous corporate career, leading a lot of large teams and writing code, and following a burnout, she served her career into becoming an author and a speaker and following her life path. So Sinjini, a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Sukriti.
I'm still suffering from a little bit of a cough, so don't mind me. But tell us about this. Tell us a little bit about Lighthouse and your new path.
Oh, thank you so much. Lighthouse is the one-stop shop for founders and leaders and individuals, speakers, storytellers to be able to find, discover, design, and tell their authentic stories. And that changes everything. When we stand up and when we tell our stories, that changes the way we think of ourselves, that changes the way people see us, and that changes the mainstream conversations that are happening at the table, be it at the dining table or at the boardroom's table. So that is what I do. The conversations you have with your clients, the conversations you have with your in-laws, the conversation you have with your teenage brat, or the conversations you have between your 2 years, I work with all of them, and I help you to be able to tell your stories in a way people listen.
Awesome, because I like the fact that you're talking about a teenage brat to the mother-in-law, because let's face it, we sometimes are getting a little bit like, okay, is this going to be a very corporate conversation? But it's nice to know that we're going to cover so many facets of it. Now, Sinjini, you deal with so many people and you coach them. So what are some of the biggest issues that you find that are facing people today, and especially women?
The biggest issue is that I feel that we Photoshop our existence. There's nothing wrong in it. I have put on makeup right on the screen right now. However, what we do is we Photoshop it even inside our head. We are.
They say there's a pandemic. There's some people that actually are so used to looking at themselves in Photoshop that they go to the plastic surgeon and say, please make me look like this, because, they're no longer able to relate to the real person that is in front of them.
That's a very interesting anecdote, but truly so. I'll tell you what happened to me, because my challenge was essentially a challenge I'm trying to solve for the world right now. My personal is very political. So when I had a burnout, I was a young mother, trying to jostle between work and home. And I would often say that every time I came home, I had to pretend I don't have a job. And every time I went to work, I had to pretend I don't have a baby. And that itself is, of course, photoshopping and cropping out parts of our lives. And we cannot be that, 90-degree human being here and another 90-degree elsewhere. We have to be 360-degree everywhere. So that's our basic human need, to be seen, to be understood, to be heard like we are. So that is the biggest problem. And when I had a burnout, Sukriti, to be very honest with you, for a while, I was extremely ashamed of myself. It was more than the work pressure, the stress, that I'm sitting on a shameless amount of privilege. If I cannot stand it, who can? And, it's such a failure. It must be, something must be wrong with me. And the moment I started to share a bit about, how vulnerable I felt, or maybe some days I did not want to leave the bed, or, at times you don't really love being that mother or being that, group leader. And very softly, very slowly, there was this, group of maybe, unknown strangers, people who read my book, people who would read my blog, who would catch me speaking, maybe sitting at the second last row of audience. They would come up to me and say that, you know what, I felt that way. And that's so strange, because for the longest time, I was so unhappy because I felt I was the only one. So the biggest problem I feel is that feeling that you are the only one. We are very universal. I mean, I'm sorry to break this. You are unique, but you are also very universal. Your
I'd
problems
love
are...
to hear from everybody if they've also gone through this, because I definitely agree with you. I think the more that we talk about it, because we want to project what you call the photoshopped image, that, rather than saying that, what, guess what? I am just feeling down today. I don't really want to do this. I don't have the energy, and to show our true self. But this is something that's changing quite a lot now, because even when I went to business school, we were told, please compartmentalize your life. So talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. In fact, just yesterday, I was having this very interesting conversation with one of my prospective clients. And, through the conversation, he was mentioning leadership development program is what I do for corporate. So we were discussing the scope of the program, and he mentioned something like corporate etiquette. And I jumped at the word. You know what? We are not doing table manners here. We are not teaching somebody to eat in a certain way while being in a 5-star hotel, but go home and then eat with your hands cross-legged. We are now, actually, like it or not, I mean, even if you do that, that would fail, because we are now obnoxiously present every time, every hour of our day. Like, we know where you went for dinner last night, where you went for vacation, how you had a fight with your spouse or the other. So even if you like, we cannot, select and put slices out. People are seeing us, fortunately or unfortunately, and it makes it very important to be more authentic and not have etiquette, but character development, have personal transformation.
So tell us, why did you select this topic today, unlocking your creative universe, and what do you mean by it?
Thank you for asking it. Yes, when you gave me a free rein about, what topic do you want to talk about? And I do talk about a lot on storytelling. I will also do a little bit of that today. But I felt that the call is bigger. Storytelling is one format, but the call to creativity is bigger. If I may use, one quote that I love, it is from the owner of TED, Chris Anderson. He says this very lovely line in his book, that in today's time and age, when technology can practically do most of the things human beings were doing, to the extent of, tough eye surgeries or open heart surgeries, technology can do it all. The only way left to be human is to be human.
Nice.
And what does it mean to be human, for that matter? It means to be emotional. It means to be creative. It means to do something based on your instincts and not on a pre-programmed, auto mode. That's everything. And if that sounds very fancy or philosophical, here is the truth for you, Sukriti. I was reading a study which says that in 2030, the jobs that will be there out in the market, 85% of those jobs have not been invented as yet.
Isn't that scary? Because that's scary for a lot of people, because we keep hearing these statistics that you mentioned, that the machines can do a lot of the stuff that we will be doing. So what does that mean for us? Do we need to retrain? What do we need to do?
I feel that we need to open our hearts. We simply need to do that. Because, as you say, it is scary. There are two ways of looking at change, of course, and we are all scared. Especially, that's the parent in you talking. We are scared for our children because we did whatever we did, and now we are doing whatever is evolving for us. However, the other side is, can I ride this change? Can I be the first mover? Can I do something before the others? I mean, when we were growing up, remember in the 80s or 90s, I mean, if I told my parent I want to grow up to be a gamer,
they would have laughed at us.
They would have laughed, cried, and then, locked us in the room. And look at now. And what we see, that kind of change will be multiple times in the next 20, 30 years. I mean, next 7 years for that matter. We are talking 2030 with that study. So what that really means is that we do not know. And as leaders, as senior people, we are not used to this idea of not knowing. We are like, okay, fine, we know, right? We are supposed to be ruling with authority. We are, acing and racing it. What it really means is to stay open and see, what am I naturally good at? Because There are so many things that are happening which was not there. There was not a perceived need for social media. Only because somebody invented it, people changed behavior. So now if we really love something, and if we can show other people, I really get excited doing this, do you also get excited doing this? And somewhere that becomes a tribe, that becomes a community, that becomes a mainstream joyful act. It becomes a new behavior. You are not chasing roti kapra makan anymore. You are doing things for, tree hugging. That is an industry now. Living in mud houses without Wi-Fi is an industry and costs more than a 5-star stay. So there is no boundary to what you can do, only when you lead with your heart and when you believe in what you are doing. And that's creativity for you.
So I will turn it over to you. It's a perfect time.
Should I start the presentation
Please,
now?
yes, take over.
Perfect. So thank you so much, and a beautiful beginning to the conversation. Thank you for that. So here's welcoming you to unlocking your creative universe. So for all of you who's watching us and who is on the screen or maybe watching live, I would invite you to please have a pen and a paper handy, grab something, because we will also do a bit of hands-on. It's fun to do that. And I hope you will get to see a little bit of glimpse of that universe inside you. So with that, let's get started with a little bit of a throwback. Now, once upon a time, long, long, long back, in a land far, far away, I somehow imagine it must be a little girl somewhere. In those days, our great grandmothers and our great grandfathers, ancestors, they used to live in the caves. And of course, every day as the sun would set, they would retreat into the cave and draw a large rock to guard the door of the cave. But this little girl, she was curious. So one day she slowly crawled out of her cave when her parents were not looking, just like most of us have done at some point in our life, right? So she went out and then she picked up 2 pieces of stone and started to rub them against each other, and then magic happened. It caught fire. Now, as you can imagine, all the people around her, her parents, all the neighbors, uncles and aunts, they came rushing and they reprimanded her. Are you mad? You are bringing the sun god down on earth in these unearthly hours. The gods will be angry, will be cursed. But of course, that did not stop human creativity. And every day, I suspect since that day, every day as the sun would set, these men and women, they would all come together and, make a pile of twigs and dry leaves, and they would rub stones against each other and, heat up the stones and burst them into a flame. At first, they thought that this will protect them, like keep the wild animals at bay. But soon enough, it served another purpose. It started stories. It started community. They started to share, and remember, this is a time before language was invented. Now, archaeologists tell us that, these people used to draw stick figures on the cave walls to document their time, their kind of animals, their kind of instruments and armaments they were creating. So this is before language. And they used to communicate with grunts, with body language, with, with gestures. I went to that jungle and a wild boar chased me, don't go there. Or there is honeybee pot there. So that is exactly how stories came in our life, much before language. And think of it now, what do we do the first thing when we wake up? Even before we go for a leak or even before we, wash our mouth, we are, of course, swiping the screen. Instagram stories,
Instagram stories.
Facebook stories, you name it. So stories somehow adopted and adapted like cockroaches in our lives. It stayed. And all the more today, now that, we are, there was this age, right? After those cave times, there was the agricultural age and people started to cultivate food. And then power was defined by who owned how much land. And then came the industrial age, and then it became, muscle power about, who can take how much work, who can replace the machines, like 100 men versus 1 machine. And I say men very carefully because I am very gender sensitive, and women never used to work in those days. They were not let to. And From that time came the knowledge age, and it became like, okay, fine, from a middle class or from a lower middle class, we could ace it. If we are sharp, we are intelligent, we go to an Ivy League and we have degrees, we have a strong CV, we can make it to a good job, we can change our life track. However, suddenly, and now, and all the more somehow with this last 2 years, uh, I feel there is a conscious move. It is no longer about how strong your CV is or your salary is or your entire accomplishments are. Somewhere you see the worth of one human, the way we look at each other, it has changed. What are the stories we tell about them when they are not in the room? Or I want you to ask yourself now, what are the stories people say about you when you are not in the room? Do you realize that that perhaps is going to be your biggest strength? Nowadays, when we walk into interviews, at times the interview panel, they're like, I read your blog, I heard your podcast, I watched you on YouTube. Can you imagine what difference it can make if you can have your own unique creative voice? You are known for your opinions. Even when you are working with an organization, you are known for your work, not for the company. When you need a change of job, it is so much easier. People know you. That connection, that trust, that branding, that bonding, that entire existence, that executive presence or that personal presence. That is what I teach at Lighthouse, and that is what I feel is going to make a huge difference in the way we live our lives and be successful with it. I love this quote by Madam Shafiq, who is the director of London School of Economics, and I think she nails it. In the past, jobs were about muscle power. Now they are about brain, but very soon, and I believe that soon is already knocking at the door. It is going to be about the heart. It is going to be about the colleague you trust, who doesn't backbite, who doesn't conspire, who doesn't do politics which is against you. It is about that trust. It is about feeling happy to go back to work on Monday mornings, be it whatever work. It is about how you align your strengths, your passion, your love for people, your love for process, your love for passion, purpose with your profits. It is no longer about Sharma ji ka beta dekho, isne bhi IIT crack kar liya, tum bhi baith jao. It is no longer going to be about that. The life is looking very different from where we see. And here is perhaps the next big revelation. We cannot be visible to others. We cannot be this charismatic person, like, dazzling and jazzling, walking into the room and, the seas part their ways to be able to walk us down. We cannot be that person unless we are visible to ourselves. What do they talk about us if we do not talk about us? And what do we talk about us if we do not know us enough? Any thoughts at this point? I would love to hear some, Sukriti, you or maybe, some of the participants.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's true. I really like this quote because, I think a lot of times we think that others need to appreciate us. And that's really where we get stuck, because this visibility battle that we are fighting is in the eyes of others rather than in ourselves.
And when you somehow start to believe that you are this person, you are this powerful person, you are this charismatic person, you are this worthy person, you are this kind person, suddenly you behave that role. And when you behave and act that role, everybody believes you. It doesn't drop from the sky. And more, I think, people curse a lot about, the new advents of social media behavior, what we are doing, how we are wasting our time. So all of those things aside, somehow, I believe that this penetrable thing that we have created around us, where we are visible from all angles, like it or not. People, your child's parents, they see you on Facebook. Where do you hide from? So you cannot be different people at different junctures of your life. And that has a positive effect because we finally have to be ourselves. And then it makes it critical. Who are we? Not the big spiritual, philosophical question, but simple things. Do I enjoy doing this? Can I own this up? How do I change the world? Why am I doing what am I doing? How does it help? Where am I going from here? it is getting important to ask these questions, not wait for the manager to ask them these questions, at the appraisal routine of 1 hour, but to ask ourselves this question as a habit and to grow from it. Be it for professional success, or be it to be able to have a very strong bonding as a parent, or be it just to be able to write your journals and show yourself up in the world.
Please do repeat the questions. They're very interesting and you said them very quickly.
I'll come to the questions. Wait for it.
Okay, good.
We are right on time. So here's the pen and paper work that's waiting for you. What I'll do now is, over the next 5 slides, I will ask you 5 questions. And I want you to please write down the answers. But before that, some ground rules. First, you don't have to reveal, share, divulge your answers. So feel absolutely 200% free, safe, and trusting with this process. You can burn up the paper, you can tear it down, you can trash it. Frankly, it's between you and the paper. Nobody gets to know it. So be very honest and authentic through these next 5 slides. It's just for you, for nobody else. Only if you want to share, you are welcome, but nobody is going to force you, ask you, or hold you up. The second thing is that our brain doesn't often think in, very nice lyrical sentences, complete sentences full with adjectives and pronouns. Our brains are 360-degree thinkers, like word webs, broken sentences, wrong spellings, stick figures for that matter. So feel free to write down whatever comes to your mind, doesn't matter. Even draw it out, or put lines, put dashes, full stops, whatever. And of course, do it honestly and do it immediately. Don't think over it, don't ponder. These are the first glimpse of those thoughts that we want to catch with you. So the first one, complete the sentence, I am. Who are you? A professional, a mother, a pedestrian, a driver, a writer, a journalist, a niece, a daughter, a neighbor, a community owner, a spirit living a human life. Who are you? The next sentence, complete it. What do you love? I love. What do you love? Food? You have me there. Movies, particular singer, actors, to read book, a particular writer, some dress, some way of life, some country, some vacations. What do you love? What do you loathe? Now, this is something we don't often let ourselves say. It's all fine. We want to choose the good ones. We love, we are kind, but we don't want to talk about or think about the time when we feel jealous, when we feel resentful. And we do that also often. What do you loathe? Having to go to work, having to cook,
having to wake up,
having to wake up at all, I know. Having to look at the clock all the time. Okay, the next meeting starts 5 minutes, 7 minutes, having to wear makeup again. What do you loathe? Summer, winter, rainfall?
Harsh says hypocrisy. I love it.
Absolutely, love that. The fourth one. What do you own? What's yours? The house, the car, the life, the health, the children, the future, the past, the memories, the dreams, the venture maybe that you have created, like your baby, the team, the followers on
Freedom.
social media? Freedom? Wow.
Actually, we own nothing when you start thinking about it. No? What do we really own?
And the final one, what do you wish for?
Sangeeta says me time.
Oh, yes. What do you wish for yourself? What do you wish for your children? What do you wish for the world? What do you wish for the society? What should change out there? What do you wish for your boss? Maybe to get another job. So what we are essentially doing here is to allow ourselves. ALLOW. I am, I love, I loathe, I own, I wish. And this is perhaps the very first little tiny crack of glimpse that we are taking into our own lives. And I'm sure over the last 5 slides, you have at least invented one thing about yourself, which maybe we don't often stop and ask. Because our regular routine, working by the hands of the clock, the pages of the calendar, doesn't allow us this time to stop and reflect. But it becomes important because it's very important not to mistake the trees for the wood, or not to mistake my KPIs or my job, like what do I need to do today, my to-do list, for my career. If we are looking really zooming in today and saying, oh my God, these many meetings, these many things to do, okay, how to get them like checked out, we are not doing justice to the longer term. Where are we going with it? How do we want to shape it? And without that compass, we might be climbing wrong ladders. Because we have been taught to climb ladders by the academic systems, right? Nobody asked, do you choose geography or physics? Everybody said that whatever it is, whatever question comes, you have to write everything and you have to try to get the maximum marks, and who got the highest? Why isn't that you? So somehow we are used to having to climb ladders. Every time you see a form, you fill it up. Every time you see something, you want to compete for it. But is that for you? Do you love it? Do you loathe it? Do you own it? Does it align with your purpose, with your passion, with your profit? Nothing wrong with being driven by profit or being driven by people. We just have to know what we are driven by. That's the catch. So at this point, I would invite some of you to please, Sukriti, is there a way in which we can?
Yeah, if somebody would like to raise their hand, we could unmute them. That is not an issue. But please do raise your hand so we can then take your comments.
Would love to hear a bit of how you felt through this last exercise.
You can put it in the chat if you don't want to unmute. Either way, both will work.
Sukriti, anything that came up for you that...
No, I think, of course, a lot of these questions really do make you think. You do wonder. And like I said, a lot of times we're just running. So sometimes it's nice to step back and say, okay. And of course, what came up for me is now, how is this linked to creativity?
That's very interesting, because creativity somewhere, the first book that you write, every time readers turn around and say, is the protagonist yourself? Even when you paint, there is a part of you that comes out. I mean, I think Picasso said it once, you cannot draw a tree without becoming a tree in some way. So creativity essentially is an emotional process that stems from us. We can, of course, make very nice, craft work, crochet, or many other things which may not look like, a character which is us. Writing or speaking perhaps is more closer to it, where you can, really put in like flesh and blood. However, knowing ourselves opens a trap door that then kindles you. What did you love to do as a child?
So
Same
we're
to
getting
Rita.
some comments. So Anshuman is saying, good exercise to reflect into yourself. Vinu is saying, still processing, thinking, good exercise to ponder in deep. Kash says, fantastic exercise.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So let's go back and talk a little more about, what we do with this now. And as Sukriti was asking, how does it relate to creativity? So we have got some ideas about ourselves. These are like word waves, right? Okay, fine. I didn't even realize that I love to eat, this particular food. What would it take for you? Even if people at home don't want to order that food, what would it take for you to take out that time, give yourself that permission to order for yourself, to take yourself out, maybe call up a friend and to go out together to have that? The first step is to allow to know. The second step is to allow to act. And when we allow ourselves, when we love ourselves, I mean, that's definitely the final destination, and it's quite far away for many of us. Can we ever love ourselves like we once loved our lovers when we fell in love? I think creativity begins there. How do you create these small, Lego pieces into that beautiful life that you want for yourself, even for an hour on a Saturday afternoon, even after everybody has gone to sleep, and you can stay up to listen to that music that you love to listen to. But somehow, of course, in the hustle of life, you don't get to play your favorite singer. So that is how this connects to creativity. And interestingly enough, when you stand up and when you start talking about it, when you say, after such a long time, I played Lucky Ali yesterday. Trust me, there will be, strange people who you won't even remember they were on your friend list, or they would be even reading your post. They would be like, oh my God, I'm also a fan. We are human werewolves. I mean, we already discussed photoshopping, like, we always put up pictures, last night's dinner party, so much fun, etc., etc. But then you go out and say, I burnt Maggie last night, oh my God, when will the lockdown get over, when can I get back my normal life? And there will be so many voices around you who's like, I hate cooking too. And it is on these full moon nights that we start suddenly telling our truth, a little bit by bit. I'm not saying that we suddenly go out and wash dirty linens in public. It's not that. It's being open to connect, showing up, being seen, being understood, being heard. And that's an innate need. I mean, as much as we put up a show, we get lonelier inside because we think that people love us for that picture, but that picture isn't me. So show up as you. And then you see all these human werewolves collect around you. You become a tribe. Your voice is heard. When you draw something, even if it is like a novice, people say, wow, good try, good attempt. And we all need, I won't call it that validation, I would call it that motivation. We all need that voice to be with us. And for that, we need to show up. So that's very important. And how storytelling works in this, storytelling being one of the many formats of creativity. But I would debate that it requires less preparation, because we are always anyway talking, right? What does it take? We are not having to write a 80,000 word novel at the first go, but we are always talking. We are always posting on social media. What takes us to write 2 lines in it? And 2 lines can be powerful. 4 words can be powerful. Even if you don't want to write, what stops you from maybe having an interview with somebody, you had a good conversation, why don't we go live and have this conversation? I'm sure many more will resonate. Or maybe you read a good book, how about putting down a few lines of review, watched a movie and you connected with a character, or you really hated it. What stops you from starting somewhere? And how storytelling works is exactly this. You don't have to get into the grammar right at the beginning. The grammar comes, the grammar is important. And I will come to that. But to begin with, you have to see the fruits of it. You have to be able to just shine up and speak. Be it a video, be it a podcast, be it a social media post, be it a social media live, be it having a conversation or organize something, a topic of interest. Are you really very strongly, sensitive about maybe parenting issues, or children rights, or mental health, or women issues, or SDG 5 or SDG 3, or the future of work, whatever it is. What stops you from gathering 3 people who you admire and starting a panel? Maybe just one. You don't have to commit to do a weekly or a monthly. What does it take for you to do that? That's where stories begin. And you know how it works. Of course, you first explore yourself. You come up with things that you like or do not like, and you want to raise your voice and make it public. When you speak the first time, the second time, it won't be a panel or a hall full of audience, but there will be hearts that will connect, people who will read you or see you or watch you, listen to you. They would be like, wait, I also feel that way. Let's catch up over coffee and discuss this more. I love that movie. Oh, I love that book. Tell me more about it. And then when you take it to the next level, it becomes a tribe. And when people trust you, people love you, it's not that you are going to write a book next day or you are looking for a publisher or something. But when you get these strangers, when you get this following, when you get this digital presence, and today presence is really about digital presence in a lot of time. Tomorrow you are working in IT and you need a change of job. You have so many people to talk to. That's the beauty. You don't have to exchange visiting cards. They are so lame today. We need to be more visible and more authentic than that. And for example, you run a venture and people are like, oh, I really love you. I love talking to you. And what do? Oh, really? Can I connect you to this person? That's how it works. Not to mention, very practical impacts. At interviews, how many of us have ever been asked this question, oh, hey, so tell me something about yourself. And how do we go about it? Oh, hi, I'm Sinjini Sengupta. I'm born and brought up in Calcutta. I studied in ISI, and then I'm an actuary. Then I swerved to become this and that. How boring. What if I can tell you, here are 3 things I really love. I love to travel. I love good food. And I love to talk to people. What do you love? What does it take us to be able to do that?
I think we're fearful because we are fearful of breaking out of that rut because we don't know if that other party will appreciate that answer. Or are they looking for that storybook? Here is my resume.
But what are our chances when we say that rut? What are our chances? Everybody, like the 3 people who came before me and the 17 people waiting outside the door, they'll say the same things. So what are our chances? And what are our stakes if we say that? Somebody who is really senior wearing a very tie and a thick pair of glass, and there are like 4 of them, and they're asking very heavy questions, with mustache, and they're like taking down notes and something, and they look you in the eye and you are like, trembling. What does it take you to overcome fear and say that out? You know what? I love vacations. Do you? What's the risk? Because the thing is that they're all humans, and this is something I recall reading in a book, and that touched me. As a public speaker, very often I would be in that place where, oh my God, why did I sign up for this? Am I really going to go on the stage and do this? And I remember, once I was doing this workshop with IBM in person before the lockdown. And I walked into this room and there was this pretty large, they were like, first-time managers, IC2 manager, a pretty large group. And when we finished the workshop, by the end of it, I opened it for questions, and one of them raised hand and said, Sinjini, how did you, talk to us like you know us? And I'm like, I don't know you, but I know you are people. You are just like me. Either older or younger, either ahead of me by age, chronologically, or younger, born later than me. What big difference? We are not so different. How bad can it be? So I feel that is an inner work we need to do. And once we do that, again, interviews, business presentations, networking, hey, hi, nice to meet you, how are you doing? And then you turn to the other person without waiting for an answer. Or of course, digital presence like this. Everything can change. And not only change, but from first impressions, they would become memorable. At the least, think of this, Sukriti, like instead of speaking to an interview panel saying I was born, I was, doing this and this happened and I'm just like everybody else. If I say something remarkable, even if they don't give me the job, they'll remember.
Very true.
They'll remember. And that has a huge effect. And they would remember for a good reason, not because I said something wrong, but because I was brave, I was authentic, I showed up. So here are, 3 quick reasons I wanted to share with you why we should all be storytellers. And this is something that I have come to believe with all my heart, that we are done with the language we were speaking so long, hey, how are you? And, telling the children, hush up, that's not how you hold your fork and chopsticks, do this, do that, this is the right way. We are so over it. And especially again, recalling the lockdown and the pandemic, with all of us being humbled by it, with all of us realizing that we are all on borrowed time. We did nothing to deserve the days that we are living now, and some people aren't continuing. Somehow that realization humbles us, and you realize that there is more to the way we have been conducting business in life. So the first reason is that, stories or creativity for that matter is an unlimited reserve. The more you say it, the more you have it. It's not like, you have 10 apples, you give 3 to Sham and 4 to Sita, and then how many are you left with? You have your own apple orchard. And the more you tell your story, like today, I'm telling my story on Sipping Thoughts. I write on LinkedIn, I write on Facebook, I speak at different panels, I go to TEDx and talk, I go to different international forums and talk. I'm invited to, academic institutes or business schools to talk. And where so many people see me, and some people are like, wait, this guest, I have heard her before. I saw her on Sipping Thoughts. That's the beauty, because the more you do it, the more you have it. You don't exhaust the resource. You multiply it when you use it. The second thing is that, in today's time, especially the companies, the IT companies, if you are specific, they are very smart, because they realize that, people are growing up, and then as soon as people see an opportunity, they hop out. So they all have their internal softwares now. Like you learn it, you apply it here, but you cannot carry the knowledge outside. So somewhere, most of the skills we develop in one company, working in one technical left brain job, we develop certain skills which we can transfer, but not all of them. Most of the companies have their own software, their own systems, their own culture. But storytelling is something that you carry wherever you go. From one department to another, from one company to another, one industry to another, from being a corporate into an entrepreneur, from being an entrepreneur to pivoting and, giving up your sari business and starting maybe a sapling, garden nursery business, or maybe giving it up to go for a trek and then coming back and resuming your corporate career, whatever you do. Somehow the people who you created as a tribe, they follow you. So that's transferable. And 2030, all the jobs are changing and employment becoming so fluid and, lucid and part employment and everything. It is so important that we can carry our skills wherever we go, and we can apply our skills wherever we go. And finally, I feel this is one of the biggest reasons behind a lot of the things we suffer from today. Some Sharma ji ka beta, who does better than us, gets married on time, has a child on time, gets good scores on, on all the papers and everything. But this is falling down, because it's no longer about being perfect, right? It's about being courageous. Now all the perfect, all the unicorns, these are all rebels, like good or bad, these are all rebels. They have all stood against their parents and teachers and said, I want to do something you won't understand, Papa. Right? And for that, we need to know ourselves. And the only competition is the face that we see in the mirror. And our stories help us do that. What are the stories? What do I love? What do I hate? What do I own? What do I wish the world to be? Can I do something to make it happen? What does it take to do that? What skills do I have? What do I need to outsource? How can I get around people? How can I collect the like-minded people? How can I collect the kindred souls? How can I resource? How can I do this? You see, we actually covered all these steps through the last 30-40 minutes. To tell your story, to hear more people who feel that way, and to come together. And interestingly, it is no longer about table manners or leadership etiquettes or how to crack a job, 10 tips. It is about being yourself and confidently being yourself. Okay, fine. Yes, I was on a sabbatical for 2 years and oh my God, I enjoyed my life and I'm so ready to come back. So being able to own it with a smile, being able to ace it rather than having a rote answer. What should you say if this happens? What do you, say when they ask you to explain that project? It's not about that. It's people are not hiring, people anymore for very hardcore technical stuff because everything is at the end of our fingertips and all the technologies are so smart nowadays. They are doing so much. We hardly have to really, reinvent the wheel in most of the things. It is really about being a good person, being loved by people, having a strong value system, being known for the job you do, being the master of it in terms of either being the nerd or being the connector or being the Marvin or being the kindred soul, and showing up in all facets of your life. So as you were talking about fear, I feel this is very ill, placed to think about because we are more powerful than that. I'm sure some of you have come across this quote, but this never stops to inspire me. So here is it for you, that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. We are so powerful. Our stories are so powerful. We are often so afraid, oh my God, what happens if I tell people we are so good? I've solved it before, but if I tell people, it's not a matter. I have come across hardships. I've aced it and I'll ace it again. We feel so fearful. What will they think? They expect us to be modest and humble. But we need to tell that. And we need to believe that all over ourselves. It is our light and not our darkness that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? And that's what being creative and being the storyteller will help you do. Share the nuggets of your life, share them on social media, see people respond to it very soon. Post maybe 3 times, 4 times a week. Very soon, in 6 months' time, you will see the number of people who are trusting you, who you can reach out to, is so much more than the family friend connection that we have through our spouses or through our neighbors. Your world expands. So it's not fair to talk so much about stories and not tell you my story. So here is a bit of my story. All that you see, all these fancy titles on the screen. So these are, of course, the golden, glorious, positive parts of it. But to be honest, I have come through my own hero's journey. As I told you, I studied quantitative economics from Indian Statistical Institute. So that is, one of the most prime institutes in the country. And I got placed with ICICI Prudential. And next 12 years, I really spoke to the computer in the number language and qualified as an actuary and coded and priced insurance products and reserved and did balance sheets. As a young mother, and especially leading a large team as a group leader in my last job, I had a huge burnout. And when I now reflect on it, it is so much less for the exact work pressure and so much more about, having a friend at work or not having one, being able to express yourself, having a voice, having empathy, having that emotional intelligence to surround you, having somebody to see you and know you and say, okay, fine, I understand. That was not happening. I was so suffering and it had to be painted up with photoshopped presence almost. So I had a huge burnout. I thought I'll leave my job for 6 months and I'll quickly come back. So the doctor said, you are a step away from quadriplegia and you cannot work, like at least take a little few months of break to, I was bedridden. I was on bed rest for a while. So around that time, few miracles happened one after the other, to be honest. I wrote a short story that got made into a short film that was selected to be screened at Cannes. We were invited to walk the red carpet. That was big. That went off the roof. We went to France to walk the red carpet. We came back. It actually won a number of international awards, best film in Boston, etc. And then when we came back, I was actually, a traditional publisher. He just walked up to me, gave me his card and said, this belongs to a book. So the book came out the next year. The same month the book came out is the month when my first TEDx went on air. The second TEDx soon after, where I spoke about women and workplaces. The first one I spoke about gender neutral parenting. And I was getting invited by Accelerate to talk about, glass ceilings and gender politics at workplace. I was getting a lot of invite to do workshops, etc. I was a Toastmaster. I, qualified. I was a district finalist, etc. So somehow I realized that for the longest time, I had stifled my creative voice. I thought I couldn't do anything rather than write codes. But the moment I started to give myself permission, like allow, I realized that I could tell my stories authentically. And once I tell that, it connects people. And I have somehow been able to give voice to the emotions, both in a spoken as well as in a written way. And also in terms of fiction as well as non-fiction. I was writing for Huffington Post, India Times, etc. So all of these things came together and I realized there is a gift in it. I have my corporate background and I know what exactly is missing there. And definitely I'm not the only one. There are more people who are exactly having the same burnout. And then I went to Vipassana 6 times over, worked on myself to understand what are my priorities, what is it to be mindful and, to have your inner compass right. And then I, of course, know liberal arts, studied a lot of psychology and, behavioral economics. So I brought this all together and created Lighthouse. So Lighthouse got incubated with IIM Bangalore, and then it got incubated with Goldman Sachs 10K Women program at Indian School of Business. And Lighthouse, became that one-stop shop for people to find their voice and to be able to discover and tell their stories. Because there is a method behind the madness. As much as we tell the stories, how do you start? How do you end? I mean, we are all scrolling up and down and getting bored and living the stories. We are not listening or reading. What makes people stop and listen to your story? How can you make it more interesting? How can you make it more appealing? How can you have a call to action? How can you have a conversation than a monologue? So this is all that I teach now. So, a few glimpses of things that I teach: creative writing elements, understanding your audience, creating relatability, rapport. Why are you telling the story? Did you experience this? Tell us more. Why is this your story? And, why is it important that people act on it? The experience of it, the purpose of it, the transformational process of it, how to touch people's heart and how to change them for the better. So there is a science behind that madness. There's always
a grammar. We're going to definitely ask you to give a couple of tips on the science of the madness.
Yes, that's exactly what I do. And this is what I wanted to share. So I do teach, there is a beginner's course, which is called Stardust, which is absolutely at an entry level price, etc. And because we were doing this session, I got this, very special code. So if you want, take a screenshot of this. So go to lighthouse.co.in where you can use this. You will see, link to Stardust. You can just join up. And that is exactly what I teach, how to find the flesh and bones of your story and how to
give us some quick tips so people get some idea in terms of what are you talking about when we're thinking about putting together our stories. How do we even start? I know you started us with the 5 questions, which is fantastic, because you start to focus on what do you love, what do you hate, because you need to be on one end of the spectrum. You can't be this middle player. But give us some more tips that will help people to really find their creative voice.
You can actually start right here, right now. How about starting a social media post with saying, I attended a program today on storytelling and I discovered that there are so many things I love that I did not act upon. So I love this, I love that, and I think I will order myself this dress, or I will book myself for this vacation. What do you love that you did not act upon? Here's your story. And then how you can make it into a process is what I teach. How you can make it into bringing in character, bringing in pathos, bringing in logic, creating, your story process, creating a very solid plan based on your strength, not anybody else's strength, based on your strength. What are you good at? Thinking, writing, speaking, body language, verbal, non-verbal, vocabulary. So all that comes in, of course, the program, but really it takes only 2 sentences to get started.
So the big tip is just get started and get started writing, put something out there. Absolutely. And start finding your tribe and start finding people that will kind of resonate with you.
Sure. Get started is always the first step. And once you get started, you start also getting curious and hone your craft. Because without the craft, art cannot stand on one leg. So it is always going to be your desire, then your design.
Fantastic. Does anybody have any questions? We'd love to take them right now. I'm seeing a very quiet crowd today. They're either fantabulously just kind of like thinking.
But I'm seeing some very lovely comments in the
Yeah, absolutely.
which I absolutely love. Yeah, thank you so much for those kind words. And I hope that we will be.
So Anshuman is asking the cost of the course. Do you conduct these courses for educators offline? And Vinu is saying absorbed in listening.
Yes, I do a lot of offline courses. I do a lot of B2B business. In fact, I'm starting with a very intensive leadership development program with a leading consultant just next week through the week. So I do a lot of, connect with me on LinkedIn. Maybe if I can, I'll just
please put your LinkedIn.
I'll find and put my LinkedIn link with you if any of you have anything in mind with your, employers or with your schools or some kind of group. I would be very happy to see if we can work together. I do less of schools, to be very honest. I do much more of organizations, and I do a lot of D2C work, which is with people like yourself. Like how do you become better and become more successful, become more known, grow a personal brand, etc.
Wow. Well, I'm dying to share a story, so I will have to share it. Please. Because yesterday I went to see Maverick, the movie, Tom Cruise, and I don't know a lot of you, if you have not seen it, please do go see it. But a lot of people probably don't know, but, I was working for the US Navy in 1990 when I graduated. I was working on the Tomahawk. And what was surprising yesterday was even in the movie, 30 years later, we're still talking about the Tomahawk. So it was a blast from the past. So that just kind of tells you in terms of even the stories, how they continue for so long, and even something like a Tom Cruise, we all remember him from Top Gun, but look at that longevity of that story and that creativity that has actually kept us all even going back to packed theaters. So very, very interesting. I've just been dying to share that. Don't know why. Just made me remember that, how much things change, but yet they still remain the same.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Anybody else would love to share a story? We'd love to hear from you. No? All right then, guys, we wish you a very, very good night. Please do connect with Sinjini. She's on LinkedIn, very, very active there. So you can check her out there. And thank you. Thank you for opening our minds. And hopefully a lot of us will be motivated to get that post out today or do something.
Please do.
Or
would love to see
get
that.
Those 2 lines, and please tag her so that you can also see that what impact that this has had.
Would love to see that. Yes.
And please tag me too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sukriti, for having me. Really enjoyed having this conversation. And I hope you all the best, each one of you, and tell a lot of stories. The world needs your story.
Thank you. So Kash says, grateful. Sangeeta says, thank you for a wonderful session.